It should have been just another gas stop on Highway 72, but when the dog growled, low, guttural, and deep from the belly, time seemed to stop. 8-year-old Mason had one hand on the vending machine and the other reaching for the Coke button. He liked the sound it made when the can dropped. That's when a shadow fell over his shoulder. "Hey, bud," the man said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Long time no see. Remember me?" Mason blinked. The man looked vaguely familiar, or maybe not. Tan work boots, dusty jeans, and a flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves. He had a ball cap pulled low, sunglasses perched on the brim, and a lanyard swinging from his neck like it meant something. Maybe it did. "I'm Uncle Rick," the man added, crouching down so he was eye level. "Your mom said I'd meet you here." Inside the gas station convenience store, Jenny was comparing granola bars. Outside, her son stood frozen, because his dog had just begun to growl. Not bark, not whine, growl, and not at a squirrel. Bolt was a retired canine, a German shepherd who'd served 2 tours with a sheriff's department up north. Jenny had adopted him last spring to help Mason deal with the panic attacks he'd started having after his dad left. Bolt wasn't just a dog, he was a protector, a therapist, and sometimes the only one Mason could fall asleep next to. And now he was growling at a stranger. The man smiled wider. "It's okay, buddy. Dogs don't always remember people like kids do, but I used to see you all the time." Bolt stepped forward and placed himself directly between the man and Mason. And then the growl got louder. The gas station was halfway between anywhere and nowhere, one of those stops with old pumps, a single flickering overhead light, and a row of vending machines that ate more quarters than they gave back. Jenny came out holding 2 drinks and a bag of trail mix, waving to her son. The man turned and waved back, like he belonged there. "Oh, hey!" he called to her. "You must be Jenny. Rick, I was just talking to Mason here. You said I could pick him up, remember?" Jenny stopped short. "I'm sorry, what? I texted earlier this morning. Said I'd swing by and grab Mason since I was heading the same way. You must have been busy. Don't worry, I'll get him settled while you grab gas." Bolt was now standing rigid, nose tilted slightly down, fangs just barely peeking from his mouth. He didn't bark. He just stared. Jenny looked from the man to her son. "Mason, you know this guy?" Mason looked confused. "He said he's Uncle Rick." Jenny's face went pale. She had a brother named Rick, but he was in Colorado. This wasn't him. And nobody else should have known to call her Jenny unless they were family, or had followed her. That's when Bolt moved. He lunged forward and clamped his teeth gently, not to injure, onto the man's pant leg. "What the hell?" the man yelled, trying to yank away. Bolt didn't let go. Mason screamed. Jenny dropped the trail mix. Inside the store, the cashier had already called the local sheriff. It was a small town. Folks knew each other. The girl at the counter had seen enough Dateline to trust a dog's instincts over a man's smooth talk. Outside, the man was still trying to yank away from the shepherd's iron grip. "I said let go of me! This is harassment. This is a dangerous dog," he shouted. Jenny was shaking. "Let him go, Bolt. Please." Bolt didn't move. He stood planted like a stone, jaw clenched just enough to keep the man from walking, but not enough to break skin. "Listen, I don't want trouble," the man snapped. "Just trying to help out a friend. You people are crazy." Jenny's voice trembled. "What's Mason's middle name?" "What? You said you know us. What's his middle name?" The man blinked. It's James?" "No," Jenny said coldly. "It's Thomas. You need to stay right here." Just then, a squad car pulled into the lot. Deputy Barnes stepped out, one hand on his belt. He'd been in town 15 years, seen more than a few weirdos passing through. "What's going on here?" he asked. Bolt still held firm. The man started pleading his case. "This dog attacked me. I was just talking to the kid. I think he mistook me for someone else. I didn't touch anybody. Is that right? The deputy asked, stepping closer. Mind if I see some ID? The man hesitated. Too long. Deputy Barnes's eyes narrowed. I need to call this in, he said, stepping aside to use his radio. What's the name again? The man said nothing. Bolt's ears twitched. If stories like this move you, true tales of heroic animals and unbreakable bonds, don't forget to subscribe to the Heroes for Animals YouTube channel. These stories deserve to be heard, and your support helps us keep telling them. Inside the car, the deputy's radio buzzed. Dispatch, we ran that license and name. Negative match. No Rick Johnson, born in state. Vehicle comes back to a rental. Booked with a prepaid card. Looks like a burner. Deputy Barnes frowned. He stepped forward slowly. Sir, I'm going to need you to step away from the boy. And if you try to run, this dog will outrun you. The man took a half step back. Bolt didn't budge. In fact, Bolt took one more step forward, forcing the man's balance to shift. It was subtle, but it was enough. Deputy Barnes seized his arm and twisted it behind his back. A pair of cuffs snapped shut like thunder, cracking across the lot. Jenny grabbed Mason and pulled him close, kneeling beside him. I didn't know him, Mason whispered. He said your name. Jenny was crying. You did the right thing, baby. And so did Bolt. The man was placed in the back of the cruiser. They'd learn later he'd been arrested once before for attempted child luring in another state. Out on parole, using fake names and targeting mothers traveling alone. But none of that mattered in the moment. What mattered was that a growl, deep, low, and fierce, had said more than 1,000 words could. Bolt sat at Mason's feet, calm now, his tail sweeping once across the pavement. He didn't need a thank you, but Mason leaned in anyway and whispered, Good boy. The sun was beginning to dip behind the ridge when the sheriff's car rolled away from the gas station, taking the stranger with it. For a moment, the world seemed still again, like someone had hit pause. Jenny stood there, one arm wrapped around Mason, the other hand stroking Bolt's thick fur. The shepherd's breathing had calmed, but his eyes remained locked on the road, as if he didn't quite trust that the threat was gone. A soft breeze stirred the American flag on the pole outside the gas station. Come on, baby, Jenny finally said, voice still shaky. Let's get out of here. She held Mason's hand tighter than she needed to. Bolt padded beside them without a sound, his paws landing light on the hot pavement. They got in the car, a dusty red Chevy Traverse with sticky notes still taped on the dash, reminding Jenny about groceries and overdue oil changes. Bolt took his usual spot in the back, where Mason could reach him. But Mason didn't say much. He just sat with his hand resting on Bolt's neck. Jenny turned the key in the ignition, but she didn't drive off right away. Her hand trembled slightly on the wheel. Back on the road, the world looked the same. Long stretches of highway, fence posts leaned at tired angles, and distant barns with peeling paint. But something in Jenny had shifted. She kept checking the rearview mirror, like she expected that dusty rental car to appear again, rising from the heat waves off the asphalt. Mason was quiet, quieter than usual, and that said a lot, because he was always a quiet kid, the kind who'd rather sketch in a notebook than run around at recess. After 20 minutes of silence, he finally spoke. Do you think he was going to take me? Jenny's heart ached. I don't know, sweetheart. But Bolt knew something was wrong. Mason nodded, still staring out the window. He didn't let go. No, she said softly. He didn't. They stopped for the night at a roadside motel just outside of Greystone, a place with faded blue doors, coin-operated ice machines, and flower beds full of plastic tulips. Jenny booked a double room. 2 beds, 1 boy, 1 dog, 1 mother, too scared to sleep. Mason sat on the edge of the bed, brushing Bolt's coat with the old bristle brush they always kept in the car. Bolt laid his head on the child's lap like he was guarding something precious. Jenny stepped outside with her phone, needing air. She called her sister in Ohio, told her everything, tried not to cry, failed. They said he's been using fake names all over the state. Jenny whispered into the phone. He had a kid seat in the back of that rental, Karen. A blanket, juice boxes. The silence on the other end said more than words. "Oh my God," Karen finally said. "Jenny." "I don't know what would have happened," Jenny murmured, "if Bolt hadn't—" She looked back through the motel room window. Mason and Bolt were curled up together now. The boy half asleep, the dog still alert. That dog saved my son's life. The next morning brought fresh coffee, stale bagels, and a deputy knocking on the door at 7:15 a.m. "Ma'am," he said, tipping his hat, "name's Deputy Ray. Sheriff wanted me to drop by with an update." Jenny stepped outside in her pajamas, her heart already racing. "The man we took in. Real name's Leonard Watts. Been flagged in 3 states, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. Each time, different name. Always gets close to moms traveling with kids. Fast talker, charm and lies. He's slippery." "Oh, God," she whispered. "He's in holding now," Deputy Ray added. "No bail. Federal charges pending." Jenny looked like she might collapse. Ray shifted awkwardly, then cleared his throat. "There's one more thing," he said. "We'd like to give your dog a commendation. We're hosting a community event Saturday. Sheriff's idea. Said Bolt deserves a hero's badge." Jenny blinked. A badge?" "Yeah," Ray grinned. "He's got better instincts than most of us." The days that followed were oddly quiet. Jenny and Mason reached their destination, her mother's cabin by Willow Creek, but things felt different. Jenny noticed herself locking the car even when they were just stepping away for a second. She wouldn't let Mason go outside alone, even in the backyard. And every stranger suddenly looked like they might know too much. But Bolt stayed the same, loyal, watchful, steady. That dog never left Mason's side. Not when he slept, not when he ate, not even when Mason curled up under the old oak tree to draw comics in his notebook. Every night, Jenny sat on the porch swing, a glass of iced tea in one hand, Bolt's leash in the other, even though he didn't need one. "You're more than just a dog," she whispered once. "You're the only reason he's still here." When Saturday came, they returned to town for the sheriff's event. There were booths with lemonade, local firefighters flipping burgers, and a raffle for a new bicycle. Children ran through the grass, sheriff's deputies handed out stickers, and a band played old country songs off-key. Mason clung to Jenny's hand. Bolt walked at her side, freshly brushed and wearing a red bandana around his neck. "Ma'am," Sheriff Tucker greeted, stepping forward with a microphone in one hand and a small black box in the other. "This here's for your partner." He knelt down and opened the box. Inside was a polished silver badge. It read, "Honorary K9, Bolt. Courage is silent. Loyalty never blinks." Jenny wiped her eyes. The crowd applauded. Mason beamed. And Bolt? Bolt didn't move. He simply sat down, tail flicking once. That was enough. Later that evening, Jenny pulled Mason aside. "Why didn't you go with that man?" she asked. "Even before Bolt stepped in. You didn't walk away." Mason looked thoughtful. "He said things that were right, like your name, my school. But something in my stomach felt weird. And Bolt didn't like him." Jenny smiled softly. "I guess sometimes the body knows before the brain does." "Yeah," Mason said. Bolt knew. That night, as the crickets began their nightly chorus and the world softened under a blanket of stars, Jenny stood at the window. She looked out over the dark field behind her mother's cabin. Bolt sat at the edge of the grass, ears alert, eyes scanning the tree line. He didn't move when a deer wandered by. He didn't flinch at the wind. He was waiting for something, or maybe watching to make sure nothing came again. Either way, Jenny didn't worry. Not with Bolt there. Not with a dog who didn't just save lives. In the days after the ceremony, life settled into a new rhythm. The mornings at Jenny's mother's cabin were slow and golden. Sunlight filtering through lace curtains, the smell of bacon and toast drifting through the air, and Mason's laughter echoing through the kitchen as he played with Bolt between bites of breakfast. But beneath the warmth, something lingered. Jenny couldn't quite shake it. Maybe it was the way Bolt would pause at doorways now, just a second longer than usual, sniffing the air like he was reading a story only he could see. Or how he refused to lie down fully unless he could see both Mason and the front window at once. He didn't act scared, he acted ready, and that somehow made Jenny feel like she wasn't. Tuesday morning came with thunder in the distance. Summer storms had always rolled over the mountains this time of year, quick, loud, and heavy with wind that bent the trees and rattled the porch swing. Jenny was folding laundry when she heard it. Not thunder, a knock. 3 sharp, deliberate raps on the front door. Bolt was up before she was. He moved to the entryway in total silence, planting himself between the door and the hallway where Mason sat cross-legged, coloring. Jenny peeked out through the side window. A man stood on the porch, not the same one. Different clothes, older, heavy set. Dark baseball cap pulled low. A delivery truck idled in the driveway behind him, too large for regular Amazon packages and without any company logo. "Morning," the man called, too cheerful. "Got a package for a Jenny Carlson?" Jenny didn't open the door. "You'll need to show ID," she replied, her voice flat. The man shifted. "Can't leave it unless you sign. Policy." "What's in the package?" He shrugged. "I just deliver, but it's marked urgent." Bolt's growl started like before, low, deep, and slow building like a train coming down the tracks. Jenny didn't open the door. Instead, she stepped back and called the sheriff. By the time Deputy Ray arrived, the truck was gone. The man had walked back to it casually when Jenny refused to open the door. No confrontation, no threats. Just a smile and a wave as he turned around. But Bolt stayed by that door long after the engine disappeared down the gravel road. Ray took a report, promised to run nearby delivery logs, left with a furrowed brow. Jenny stood on the porch long after he left, heart thudding behind her ribs like a warning bell. "What if it's not over?" she whispered to herself. Bolt sat beside her, unmoving. That night, Jenny locked every window. She moved a chair under the front knob, left a flashlight and her phone charging by the nightstand. Bolt curled up by Mason's bed without being told. The wind howled outside. Rain started around 1 a.m., tapping on the roof like fingers trying to find a way in. Mason stirred once, dreaming of something he couldn't quite remember. But Bolt stayed awake, always half awake, watching, waiting. By Thursday, Jenny was exhausted. She hadn't said anything to her mother, didn't want to worry her. But the moment she saw Mason draw a truck that looked just like the one from 2 days ago, her chest tightened. "Where'd you see that?" she asked. Mason shrugged. "I don't know. I think I saw it near the tree line yesterday, just for a second." Jenny didn't let him go outside after that. The sheriff called back that afternoon. The truck had been reported stolen, out of Birmingham, 2 days before the stranger arrived at their door. Now the cabin didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a checkpoint, like they were just waiting for something to happen. Jenny packed bags before the sun even set. "Mama," she told her mother, "we're heading back home tomorrow. I think it's safer." Her mother nodded, but not without worry. "That dog'll keep you safe," she said, running her hand along Bolt's back. "He's got eyes where people don't." They left early the next morning. The sky was still orange with sunrise, and mist clung to the ground like something afraid to let go. Bolt rode in the back as usual, but his eyes never stopped moving, scanning every car that passed, every shadow by the side of the road. It wasn't paranoia, it was preparation. Jenny had always known Bolt was special, but now it was like he had stepped into a different role, not just protector, but predictor. He was watching for something Jenny couldn't name, and whatever it was, he sensed it first. They made it back to their little blue house on Ashbury Lane just after noon. Nothing had changed. The grass was slightly overgrown, the mailbox tilted a bit to the left, and the porch light flickered when you jiggled the bulb. Home. But it didn't feel like it. Not yet. Bolt walked the perimeter of the property twice before he even drank water. He sniffed every bush, every tire track, every back gate post, like he was building a mental map of safety. That night, Jenny barely slept. And at 3:12 a.m., Bolt barked. Once. Sharp, loud, final. Jenny flew out of bed. Bolt stood rigid at the window, his nose pressed to the glass. Jenny followed his gaze. A figure was walking along the sidewalk, slowly, deliberately, hood up, hands in pockets. They didn't stop, didn't look up. But Bolt barked again, this time lower, fiercer. Jenny called the police. By the time they arrived, the figure was gone. Just footprints in the wet lawn. But that was enough. Sheriff Tucker sat on her porch, arms crossed, while Bolt paced behind him. "We think someone's watching you," he said simply. "They know Bolt's a problem. That might be why they haven't tried anything again, but I want you on alert. No more going out alone, and—" He hesitated. Jenny leaned forward. "And—" He looked down. "It's possible this is bigger than just one guy. The man we arrested, Leonard Watts. He may be part of something." Jenny felt her blood run cold. "You're saying there might be more?" Sheriff Tucker stood. "I'm saying keep your doors locked. Trust that dog. And if he growls again, don't second-guess it." That night, Jenny brought her son into her own bed. Bolt laid at the bedroom door, paws forward, ears up. Rain tapped on the roof again, softer this time. Jenny whispered into the dark, "I'm scared." Mason mumbled, "I'm not." "Why not?" "Because Bolt's here." Jenny placed her hand on Mason's chest and felt his small heartbeat slow into sleep. She looked across the room at the silhouette by the door. 4 legs, upright ears, the profile of loyalty itself. Maybe the world had monsters, but they had Bolt. And somehow that was enough. Jenny didn't used to be this way. She wasn't the kind of person who looked over her shoulder at the grocery store or triple-checked the locks before bed. But something had shifted in her, slowly, then all at once. After that gas station, after that man, and after the second stranger with the fake delivery. She'd always believed in her instincts. Now she believed in Bolt's more. And Bolt? He hadn't rested easy since. It started 2 nights after the figure appeared outside their home. A single bark at 2:43 a.m., sharp, alert, intentional. Jenny sat straight up in bed before her brain even caught up. She knew that sound now. It wasn't a bored bark or one meant for a raccoon on the trash can. It was the kind of bark Bolt gave when something wasn't right. She slipped out of bed and crept to the window. Bolt stood in the hallway, tail stiff, head forward, body braced toward the back door. Jenny didn't turn on the light. She just stared through the darkness, heart pounding. Nothing. Then she saw it. Just for a split second. A flicker. A movement behind the shed. A shadow stepping back into darkness. She reached for her phone. The police came quick. Sheriff Tucker had told the dispatch team to mark her address for high response priority. 2 cruisers arrived within 10 minutes, but by then the yard was empty. Deputy Ray walked the property with his flashlight while Bolt sniffed every inch, nostrils flaring, body rigid like he'd been built for this exact task. They found boot prints, fresh ones, men's size 10, same tread as the footprints from the sidewalk days earlier. "They're watching the house," Ray muttered, crouching low by the shed. "But I don't think they're just watching anymore." Jenny folded her arms. "So what are they doing?" He stood, feeling us out, seeing how close they can get, what the dog does, how fast we respond. "Like they're studying us?" Ray nodded grimly. "Exactly." The next day, Jenny didn't send Mason to school. She sat him down and told him the truth, at least most of it. That someone bad was still out there, and until the sheriff figured things out, they'd be laying low. Bolt never left Mason's side. Even when he went to brush his teeth, the shepherd waited at the bathroom door. Jenny called her boss and took unpaid leave from the diner. "Family emergency," she told them. Then she moved Bolt's bed to the front room. Not that he used it. He preferred the entryway rug, with one eye on the window and the other on Mason. 3 days later, a package arrived. No knock, no doorbell. Just a box sitting quietly on the porch when they woke up. Jenny stared at it through the peephole. It had no postage, no label, no return address, just one word scrawled across the top in black marker. Mason. Bolt growled so low it vibrated the floorboards. Jenny didn't touch it. She called the sheriff. Inside the box was a stuffed bear. Brown. Worn. Its nose was missing, and one arm had been crudely stitched back on with black thread. But Mason recognized it instantly. "That's Mr. Buttons," he whispered, eyes wide. "I lost him when I was 5. Jenny's stomach twisted. How could anyone? She didn't finish the sentence. Sheriff Tucker picked up the bear with gloves. "This is personal," he said. "Whoever we're dealing with, they've been watching you for a long time. This isn't random." He paused, then added, "He knew Bolt would stop him. That's why he didn't try again right away. He's trying to wear you down." Jenny felt sick. "He's playing a game." "And we're not going to play along," Tucker said firmly. "We're going to end it." The next 48 hours moved like molasses. The police increased patrols, but the feeling of being hunted didn't leave. Jenny covered the windows with thick curtains. She kept a flashlight and a kitchen knife beside her bed. She let Bolt sleep in Mason's room every night. Door open, hallway light on low. Mason tried to stay strong, but the fear settled in like cold air in an old house. He started jumping at every knock, every phone ring, every creak of the stairs. One night, he looked up at Jenny and said, "What if Bolt gets tired?" She smiled sadly. "Bolt doesn't get tired, baby. He just waits." Saturday morning came with unexpected news. The sheriff knocked just after sunrise, carrying a manila folder and a tired smile. "We might have found him," he said. Jenny's hands trembled. "You're serious?" Tucker nodded. Security footage from a gas station 30 miles north. A man matching the second stranger's description tried to lure a child into a rental van. Dog barked. Kid ran. Same type of van used to follow you. He opened the folder. His name is Daniel Lorne, 41 years old, known for identity fraud, trespassing, and suspected in 2 prior missing child cases. Always operates alone. Smart, careful, obsessive. He passed Jenny a photograph. It was him, the delivery guy, the man who left Mr. Buttons. Jenny stared at the photo, then looked at Bolt. He was already standing, as if he knew it was time. That night, they didn't sleep. Sheriff Tucker and 2 deputies set up a sting. An unmarked car parked on the next street over, watching the house. Another officer stationed out back by the shed. All lights off, curtains drawn, everyone waiting. Mason stayed in the back room with headphones and a walkie-talkie. Jenny sat in the dark, gripping a cup of cold coffee like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Bolt paced slowly from room to room, silent, focused. At 3:18 a.m., he stopped. Ears up. Ears up. Body locked. Then he growled. One short bark followed. Jenny's heart dropped. Sheriff Tucker whispered over the walkie. "All units, go. He's here." Outside, flashlights cut through the night. Officers swarmed, but Bolt didn't wait. He lunged at the back door, barking now with full force. Jenny raced after him, barely grabbing the knob before he rammed it. They saw him then, a figure moving fast across the yard. Daniel Lorne. He was crouched near the bushes, a crowbar in one hand, dressed in all black. He sprinted toward the neighbor's fence, but Bolt was faster. The shepherd burst through the door like a missile, leaping the porch steps in 2 bounds. "Bolt, no!" Jenny screamed, but it was too late. Bolt had already launched himself forward, teeth bared, fury unleashed. He hit Lorne mid-stride, knocking the man off his feet and dragging him down into the grass. Lorne swung the crowbar. It hit Bolt across the shoulder. Bolt didn't let go, not even when the deputies reached them. Not even when Tucker shouted, "Stand down!" Bolt growled through his grip, keeping the man pinned until the cuffs snapped tight. Only then did he back off, limping slightly, but still standing tall. Jenny ran to him. "Oh, my God, Bolt!" She knelt and wrapped her arms around him. He licked her chin once, just once, before sitting down, panting, calm as ever. Like he knew, like he'd always known. The headlines hit the local news first. Attempted child abduction foiled by retired K-9 in small-town hero story. Local family terrorized for weeks, but their dog knew the truth. Within 48 hours, the story had gone national. It was hard not to cover it. A retired K-9 hero, a little boy, a brave single mom, a predator caught in the act, dragged down by a German shepherd who never blinked. But behind all the media buzz and flashing cameras, real life was still happening. And it wasn't neat or tidy. It was courtrooms and cross-examinations. It was trauma responses. And it was Bolt, limping slightly, still standing watch over the family who'd trusted him when it mattered most. After Daniel Lorne's arrest, everything became evidence. The photos found in his van, the handwritten notes about Mason's school, daily patterns, Jenny's car make and license plate, the stuffed bear. Warrants led to an old farmhouse rented under a false name, where investigators found more: kids' shoes, GPS trackers, even a printed map of Jenny's neighborhood with a circle around her house. The prosecution built their case brick by brick. And Bolt? Bolt became the cornerstone. He's not just a pet, the prosecutor said. He's a witness, a guardian, a protector who risked his life to defend a child. Jenny wasn't sure she could sit through the trial. Every time she looked at the man across the room in the gray prison jumpsuit, her throat tightened, her skin prickled. But she stayed for Mason, for Bolt, for every mother who'd be watching the coverage at home, wondering if they could have done more. Bolt was there too, not in the courtroom itself. The judge said the space wasn't appropriate, but in a side chamber where he waited calmly with an officer, wearing a new harness that read, "Retired, still on duty." Every now and then, Jenny would walk out and sit with him, running her fingers through his coat, like she was grounding herself back to something steady. Mason testified via recorded video. He was brave. He talked about the vending machine, the stranger's voice, and how Bolt had growled before anything even felt wrong. The defense tried to argue that there was no physical harm done, that Lorne never touched the boy, that the dog had acted out of instinct. But Jenny's voice was clear when it was her turn. He knew my name. He knew my son's name. He knew what bear he'd lost 3 years ago, and he left it on my porch. She paused. I've never seen Bolt react like that to anyone. Not even during fireworks. Not when my ex-husband came by unexpectedly. Never. But that man, he knew something was wrong before any of us did. The jury didn't take long. On the third day of deliberation, they returned with their verdict. Guilty on all counts: attempted child abduction, stalking, harassment, trespassing with intent. Daniel Lorne was sentenced to 25 years without parole. Jenny cried when the gavel hit. Not out of relief, but release. The kind that comes when you've been holding your breath for too long. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded the steps, but Jenny stepped aside and knelt beside Bolt. It's over, she whispered. You did it, boy. You really did it. Bolt licked her wrist gently, then sat like a statue, quiet, calm, timeless. In the weeks that followed, something strange happened. People across the country began sending letters, some to Jenny, some to Mason, but most to Bolt. Handwritten cards, dog treats, sketches from children in schools. One envelope came from a little girl in Ohio. Her letter read, "Dear Bolt, thank you for saving the boy. I was taken when I was little. I didn't have a dog like you, but now I feel safer knowing dogs like you exist. My mom says you're a hero. Love, Abby." Jenny kept the letter taped to the refrigerator. The sheriff's department offered to hold a public celebration. A ceremony, a media event. Jenny declined. She didn't want another spotlight. She just wanted peace. But she agreed to one thing: a new park bench, right beside the playground near Mason's school, dedicated in Bolt's honor. For Bolt, who watched when no one else did. It was simple, wooden, with a bronze plaque and enough space for a kid and a big German shepherd to sit together and eat ice cream after school. Mason started sleeping through the night again. He stopped checking the locks, stopped flinching when the mailman came, stopped drawing scary trucks in his sketchbook. Instead, he drew Bolt, chasing butterflies, catching tennis balls, lying under the sun with sunglasses and a bandana. One day, he turned to Jenny and said, "I think I want to train dogs when I grow up." She smiled. "You'd be really good at that." "I'd want them to be like Bolt," he added. She nodded. "We all do, baby." One afternoon, a neighbor came by with a puppy, a tiny shepherd mix with floppy ears and more energy than wisdom. She asked if Mason might want to help socialize it. Mason looked at Bolt first. Bolt tilted his head, almost like he was giving permission. "Okay," Mason said, "but he has to learn from the best." Bolt's limp never fully healed. That hit to the shoulder during the takedown had left a lasting mark. But he still insisted on walking the perimeter of the yard every evening, still sat facing the front door at night, still stood between Mason and the street whenever they went outside. Jenny offered him a softer life, said he could retire for real now. Bolt refused, or maybe he just didn't know how. One summer evening, the three of them sat on the back porch watching fireflies drift over the grass. The sky was streaked with pink and lavender, the kind of sunset that made you forget for a second that the world could ever be cruel. Mason rested his head on Bolt's side. Jenny sipped her iced tea. "I never told you this," she said, "but when I was pregnant with Mason, I used to talk to him in the womb every night. I promised him I'd always keep him safe." She paused. "But I think God sent me someone to help keep that promise." Bolt thumped his tail once against the wood, and somewhere between the chirping crickets and the hum of the summer air, Jenny felt something she hadn't in a long time. Safe. Life didn't go back to the way it was before. But it didn't have to. Because sometimes, when you've walked through fire, you come out the other side changed. Not just burned, but hardened, sharper, wiser, and grateful. Grateful for a quiet morning when nothing happens. Grateful for your child's laugh as he chases butterflies barefoot in the backyard. Grateful for the dog who still rises from his bed when a car engine sounds too close. 6 months had passed since the trial. The weather had cooled, and the trees on Ashbury Lane had begun turning gold and rust, their leaves dropping like soft whispers onto the sidewalks. Kids were back in school. Halloween decorations appeared on porches, and at the Carlson household, peace had taken root, slowly, steadily, like ivy up a wall. Bolt had aged a little more in those months. His muzzle now carried streaks of silver. His steps were slower on cold mornings. He no longer chased squirrels, but his eyes, those deep amber eyes, were just as sharp, just as alert. Every night before bed, he did one lap of the house, like a sentry, like it mattered. And maybe it did, because Mason slept soundly now. And Jenny, she didn't flinch at shadows anymore. One Sunday morning, Mason woke before the sun. Jenny heard the screen door creak and peeked out the window just in time to see her boy, in his pajama pants and a hoodie, walking down the road with Bolt beside him. She didn't panic. She just pulled on her robe, poured some coffee, and followed them at a distance. They walked all the way to the park, the one with the bench that carried Bolt's name. Mason sat down and looked out at the playground. Bolt lay at his feet. Jenny approached quietly, keeping a respectful distance. That's when she heard her son speak. Not loud, not soft, just steady. "Hey, Bolt," he said, looking at the horizon. "Remember when you tackled that guy? You didn't even bark. You just knew." Bolt thumped his tail once. "You're my best friend," Mason continued. "You're not just a dog. You're my team." Jenny bit her lip to hold back the tears. A few weeks later, the school sent home a flyer. Community Heroes Day. Kids were supposed to bring someone who inspired them. A firefighter, a veteran, a teacher, a coach. Mason circled the date and wrote in big block letters, "Bolt." Jenny smiled. "You sure?" Mason nodded. "They said heroes. They didn't say they had to be human." That Friday, they walked into the school gym like rock stars. The place was packed. Families, camera phones, teachers with clipboards. And then Bolt strutted in, wearing his red bandana and honorary K-9 badge. The kids gasped. Some clapped. One girl whispered, "That's the dog from the news." The principal handed Mason the mic. "Would you like to tell us why you chose Bolt?" Mason looked down at the shepherd, who sat like a statue beside him. "He saved my life," Mason said simply, "and then he stayed. That's what heroes do." The applause lasted for minutes. Bolt just blinked once, humble as always. But time, as it always does, kept moving. And eventually, Bolt started slowing down. The stairs got harder. The walks got shorter. He slept more during the day, and Jenny noticed he no longer barked at the mailman. One evening, he didn't get up when Mason called. He wagged his tail. He tried. But his legs just didn't work the same. Jenny took him to the vet the next morning. Arthritis, hip degeneration, age. The vet said he wasn't in pain, not yet, but the day would come. Jenny nodded, holding it together until she reached the car. That night, they made a decision. They'd give Bolt the best last season of his life. They started a bucket list, written in blue crayon and taped to the fridge. Swim in the lake, eat a whole cheeseburger, sleep in the big bed, go to the beach, ride in the truck with the windows down, wear a Halloween costume. He went as a sheriff. They crossed off each one tail wag at a time. Winter came, then spring. Then, one quiet Tuesday afternoon, Bolt lay down under the maple tree in the backyard, where the grass was cool and the wind soft. And he didn't get up. Jenny held Mason close as they sat with him. "He waited," Mason whispered, "until we were okay." Jenny nodded. Because that's what Bolt always did. They buried him beneath the tree, wrapped in his favorite blanket, his badge placed gently between his paws. Mason wrote a letter and tucked it under his collar. He didn't let anyone read it. That was between him and Bolt. Jenny sat there long after everyone else had gone inside. The sun dipped low, the wind rustled the leaves, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. She smiled, because somehow she knew Bolt was still on duty. Epilogue. A year later, Jenny received a package. Inside was a framed painting, Bolt sitting proud under the tree, with Mason in the background holding his sketchbook. No note, no sender, just one sentence at the bottom of the frame. True heroes don't need capes. They need someone to believe in them. Today, there's a new dog in the house. Her name is Hope. She's not Bolt. She never will be. But she came from the same rescue center that Bolt once did. And when Mason first met her, she walked right up and laid down at his feet. Jenny took that as a sign. They still visit Bolt's bench, still leave a milk bone now and then, still tell his story to anyone who'll listen. Because some dogs don't just protect your home. They protect your soul. And long after they're gone, they never really leave. Thank you for following Bolt's story. From one small-town gas station to a courtroom to a bench in a park and into our hearts. Have you ever known a dog who changed your life or saved it? We'd love to hear your story in the comments below. And if you believe in the power of loyalty, bravery, and the animals who protect us, don't forget to subscribe to Heroes for Animals for more true stories that deserve to be told. Until next time, stay safe and trust the dog.